Lisa Carter felt the gentle bump as her cargo ship docked with Kepler Station. She had made this trip dozens of times, but something felt different today. The station looked the same as always, a collection of metal cylinders and docking arms. Floating in the darkness of space, red and blue lights blinked along its hull, guiding ships to their berths. She powered down her engines and checked her cargo manifest one more time. Rare earth elements, quantum processors, and medical supplies. Nothing too exciting, but valuable enough to make this run profitable. Her ship, the Aurora's Dream, was old but reliable. She had bought it with her savings after years of working for the big shipping companies. Now she was her own boss, and she liked it that way. The docking tube sealed with a soft hiss. Lisa grabbed her datapad and headed for the airlock. Kepler Station sat at the crossroads of 3 major shipping lanes, making it a popular stop for traders, miners, and travelers heading to the outer colonies. It was also popular with pirates and smugglers. Lisa tried not to think about that. She stepped through the airlock into the station's main corridor. The air smelled of recycled atmosphere and industrial lubricants. People walked past her, some in clean trader uniforms, others in the dirty coveralls of asteroid miners. A few wore the kind of clothes that made Lisa keep her hand near her sidearm. The fuel depot was on level 3. Lisa made her way through the corridors, noting how empty they seemed. Usually Kepler Station buzzed with activity, but today felt quiet. Too quiet. She passed a security checkpoint, but the guard wasn't at his post. A maintenance robot rolled by, its sensors sweeping the floor for debris. At the fuel depot, Lisa found the attendant reading something on his screen. He looked up when she approached. "Fuel and supplies?" he asked. "Just fuel." "Bay 7, Lisa replied, handing him her credit chip. The attendant ran the chip through his reader. "That'll be 400 credits, premium fusion cells." "Standard?" "Will do fine." While the attendant processed her order, Lisa looked around the depot. A few other pilots waited in line, but none of them looked familiar. One man sat in the corner reading a newspad. Wore simple clothes, dark pants, and a gray jacket. Nothing special about him, but something made Lisa take a second look. Maybe it was the way he sat, alert but relaxed, like he was watching everything without seeming to. "Fuel be ready in 20 minutes, the attendant said, handing back her credit chip. Lisa decided to grab something to eat while she waited. The station's cantina was on the same level, just down the corridor. She found a table near the window and ordered a sandwich and coffee from the serving robot. The cantina was half empty. A group of miners sat at one table, talking loudly about prices. 2 traders in expensive suits discussed shipping routes in quiet voices. And in the corner, she saw the same man from the fuel depot. He had ordered something but barely touched it. Instead, he seemed to be listening to conversations around him. Lisa wondered who he was. Most people who came to Kepler Station had business. Here, trading, mining, or shipping. But this man didn't look like any of those. He was too alert, too careful, like someone trained to notice things. Her coffee arrived, and Lisa checked the time on her datapad. 15 more minutes until her fuel was ready. She wanted to get back to her ship and leave as soon as possible. Something about today felt wrong, though she couldn't put her finger on what the cantina's main screen showed. The usual news feeds from Earth and the inner colonies. Stock prices, weather reports, political speeches. Nothing interesting. But then a breaking news alert flashed. Across the screen, pirate attacks increase in outer sectors. Colonial security issues warning for all civilian ships. Lisa felt her stomach tighten. She had heard the rumors about increased pirate activity, but seeing it on the official news made it real. The outer shipping lanes weren't safe anymore. Ships were being attacked, cargo stolen, crews sometimes killed, or worse. She noticed the man in the corner had looked up at the news screen too. For just a moment, his expression changed. Not fear like she felt, but something else. Maybe, or concern. Then his face went back to its neutral expression. A new group entered the cantina, and Lisa's unease grew stronger. 3 people in matching black leather jackets with silver trim. They moved with the swagger of people who thought they owned whatever space they entered. The woman had short blonde hair and cold blue eyes that seemed to take in everything. Of the men was huge, with mechanical implants replacing his left arm and part of his face. The third man appeared to be their leader, tall with dark hair and a scar running from his left eye to his jaw. The cantina got quieter as the three newcomers found a table. Even the loud miners lowered their voices. Lisa had seen their type before: people who made their living taking what others had worked for, pirates, raiders, or worse. She checked her datapad again. 10 more minutes. She wanted to leave now, but rushing might draw their attention. Better to finish her coffee and walk out normally. The scarred man was looking around the cantina, studying each person like he was evaluating them. When his eyes reached Lisa, they lingered. She forced herself to look away casually, taking another sip of coffee in the corner. The quiet man had noticed the newcomers too. He hadn't moved, but something about his posture had changed. It's like a machine switching from standby to active mode. Lisa finished her coffee and stood up. Time to go, fuel ready or not. She walked toward the exit, trying to look casual. Behind her, she heard the scrape of chairs. The three in leather jackets were following her. Her heart started beating faster. The corridor outside the cantina stretched ahead of her, leading back to the fuel depot and her ship. Other people walked past, but none of them looked like they would help if she needed it. She reached the fuel depot and found her attendant. "Is my fuel ready? Just finishing up now? Another minute or two?" Lisa nodded and tried to look calm. Through the depot's window, she could see her ship in its docking bay. So close, but it might as well have been on the other side of the galaxy. The three from the cantina appeared at the depot entrance. They weren't hiding their interest in her anymore. The three ships that docked at Kepler Station 30 minutes ago were not ordinary cargo vessels. They were sleek, black, and covered with weapon ports that glowed with a dull red light. Each ship bore the same symbol on its hull, a coiled serpent, with fangs bared. Anyone who knew anything about pirates in the outer sectors would recognize that mark immediately. Victor Kane stepped off his ship onto the station's docking platform. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with the kind of muscles that came from years of hard living and harder fighting. The scar that ran down the left side of his face was a souvenir from his days as a colonial marine, back when he still pretended to care about protecting innocent people. It was before he learned that taking what you wanted was easier than earning it. Behind him came his two most trusted crew members. Rex Martinez followed first, his cybernetic arm gleaming under the station's lights. Half his face had been replaced with metal and circuits after a mining accident years ago. The prosthetics gave him strength that no normal human could match, and he enjoyed using that strength on people who couldn't fight back. Luna Voss came last, moving with the quiet grace of a predator. Her blonde hair was cut short and practical, and her blue eyes never stopped moving, always looking for threats or opportunities. She carried herself like someone would have killed before and would kill again without losing sleep over it. The three of them had been working together for almost 2 years now, ever since Kane decided that being an honest soldier didn't pay well enough. They called themselves the Serpent Riders, and their reputation had spread throughout the shipping lanes. They didn't just steal cargo, they made sure their victims remembered the experience. Fear was good for business. Kane looked around the docking bay with satisfaction. Kepler Station was perfect for their kind of work. Far from the main trade routes, lightly defended, and full of independent traders who had no one to protect them. The station's security force was small and badly equipped. Most of them could be bought with a few credits or scared off with a show of force. "Rex, go talk to the security chief," Kane ordered. "Make sure he understands that we're here on business and don't want to be disturbed." Rex grinned, showing teeth that had been replaced with metal implants. "Should I be polite about it? Be yourself. We'll get the message." Luna checked her weapon, a high-powered rifle that could punch through most personal armor. "What about the target?" Kane pulled out a datapad and showed her a shipping manifest. "Lisa Carter, independent cargo hauler. Ship registration Aurora's. Dream. According to our source, she's carrying rare earth elements and quantum processors, worth at least 50,000 credits on the black market." "How do we know the source is reliable?" Luna asked. "'Cause I'm paying him 5,000 credits. For the information, he works in the station's traffic control. Knows every ship that comes and goes, and what they're carrying. Rex cracked his knuckles, the sound echoing off the metal walls. So we just take her cargo and go? Kane's smile was cold. Not exactly. Word is getting around that the Serpent Riders are getting soft. Some crews think they can run our routes without paying tribute. We need to send a message. Luna understood immediately. Make an example of her. Exactly. Nothing permanent. Just enough to make sure every trader in the sector knows what happens when they don't show proper respect. The three of them left the docking bay and headed into the station proper. Kane had studied the layout during their approach. He knew where the security stations were, where the cameras had blind spots, and which corridors led to emergency exits. Planning was what separated successful pirates from dead ones. They passed through the main corridor. Oh, and Kane noted how people stepped aside to let them pass. Good. Their reputation was preceding them. A few station workers looked at their matching jackets and quickly found somewhere else to be. A mother pulled her young child closer as they walked by. The station's security office was on level 2. Kane found it without trouble, a small room with outdated equipment and one tired-looking guard behind a desk. The nameplate on the desk read Chief Porter. Rex knocked on the door but didn't wait for permission to enter. He filled the doorway with his bulk, cybernetic arm worries softly as he flexed his fingers. Chief Porter looked up from his paperwork and went pale. "Can I help you?" Kane stepped around Rex and sat down in the chair across from Porter's desk. Without being invited. Chief Porter, isn't it? I'm Victor Kane. Maybe you've heard of me. Porter's hand moved slowly toward his weapon, then stopped when he saw Luna standing by the door with her rifle ready. I know who you are. Good. Then you know I'm a reasonable man who prefers to solve problems with words rather than violence. I'm here on business, and I don't want any interference from station security. What kind of business? Kane leaned back in his chair. It's the kind that doesn't concern you. All you need to know is that if you and your people stay in this office for the next hour, everyone goes home safe tonight. Porter looked at his security monitors, showing various parts of the station. I can't just ignore crimes happening on my station. Rex stepped forward and placed his cybernetic hand on Porter's desk. The metal fingers dug into the surface, leaving deep grooves. Boss asked nicely. Maybe I should ask not so nicely. Kane held up a hand. No need for that, Rex. Chief Porter is a smart man. He understands that sometimes the best way to protect people is to know when not to get involved. Porter stared at the gouges in his desk, then at Rex's metallic face. How long did you say? 1 hour? 1 hour? After that, we'll be gone, and you can go back to your regular duties. Luna spoke from the doorway. What about his officers? Kane pulled out a small device and placed it on Porter's desk. This is a signal jammer. Very effective against communications equipment. If you try to call for help or warn anyone, your radios won't work. And if my people see any security officers outside this room in the next hour, we'll assume you're not keeping your word. Porter looked at the device, then at the 3 pirates. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and far from any help. 1 hour, he agreed quietly. Kane smiled and stood up. I knew you were reasonable. Rex, stay here and keep the chief company. Make sure he's comfortable. Rex pulled up another chair and sat down, his weight making the furniture creak. His cybernetic. I glowed red in the dim light. Kane and Luna left the security office and headed back toward the main levels. They had work to do, and not much time to do it. Somewhere on this station, Lisa Carter was finishing her business and preparing to leave. They needed to find her before she reached her ship. Where do you think she is? Luna asked as they walked. Kane checked his datapad. Fuel depot, most likely, with a cantina. Independent traders usually grab food and supplies when they stop. They reached the main corridor and split up. Luna went toward the fuel depot while Kane headed for the cantina. They would find Lisa Carter, and when they did, she would learn why the Serpent Riders were feared throughout the outer sectors. Lisa walked quickly toward the fuel depot, trying to ignore the footsteps behind her. The 3 people in leather jackets were definitely following her now. She could hear their boots on the metal floor, keeping pace with her movements. Her heart hammered in her chest, but she forced herself to walk normally. The fuel depot attendant looked up as she approached. "Your fuel's ready, miss. Bay 7, all topped off." "Thank you," Lisa said, keeping her voice steady. She handed him her data. Pad to sign off on the delivery. Behind her, she heard the footsteps stop. The three pirates had positioned themselves near the depot entrance. Blocking her easiest route back to her ship, she signed the fuel receipt and turned around. Victor Kane stood directly in her path, smiling in a way that made her skin crawl. Rex loomed beside him like a mechanical mountain, while Luna had moved to cover the side corridor. They had her surrounded. "Lisa Carter, isn't it?" Kane said, his voice friendly, but with an edge that promised trouble.
"The captain of the Aurora's dream?"
Lisa's hand moved closer to her sidearm. "Do I know you?"
"Not yet, but we're about to become..."
"Very good friends. Victor Kane. These are my associates, Rex and Luna. We're in the shipping business, too." "I've never heard of you," Lisa lied. Kane's smile widened. "Really? We're quite well known in these parts." "The Serpent Riders? Surely someone mentioned us." Lisa felt cold fear settle in her stomach. Everyone in the outer sectors had heard of the Serpent Riders. They were the reason independent traders traveled in convoys when possible, and why cargo insurance rates kept going up. "I think there's been a mistake," she said carefully. "I'm just a cargo hauler. I don't have anything you'd be interested in." Rex laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Boss, she thinks we don't know what she's carrying." Kane pulled out his data. "Pad and read from it. Rare earth elements, quantum processors, medical supplies, current market value, about 60,000 credits. Does that sound right to you, Captain Carter?" Lisa's mouth went dry. How did they know her cargo manifest? Someone on the station was feeding them information. "Those are legitimate goods. I have all the proper shipping documents." "Oh, I'm sure you do," Kane said. "Very professional, very legal. That's what makes this so unfortunate." Luna stepped closer, her hand resting on her rifle. "We need to talk somewhere more private." The fuel depot attendant had disappeared, probably hiding in his office. A few other people were in the area, but they were all looking away, pretending not to notice what was happening. No one wanted to get involved with pirates. Kane gestured toward the corridor leading to the docking bays. "Why don't we walk too?" "Your ship? We can discuss terms there." "What terms?" Lisa asked, though she already knew the answer. "Simple business arrangement. You transfer your cargo to our ships, and we let you continue on your way. Everyone goes home happy. And if I refuse?" Kane's friendly expression didn't change, but his eyes went cold. "Let's not talk about unpleasant things. I'm sure a smart woman like you can see reason." Lisa looked around desperately. The corridor stretched ahead of her, leading to her ship in safety. But the three pirates blocked every escape route. Even if she could outrun them, where would she go? The station's security was either bought off or too scared to help. "I worked hard for that cargo," she said. "It's my livelihood." Rex cracked, his knuckles again, the cybernetic joints making grinding sounds. "Lady, you don't seem to understand the situation." Kane held up a hand to stop Rex from moving closer. Now, Captain Carter is just being cautious. It's a good trait in this business. But caution should tell you that cooperation is your best option here." Lisa's training kicked in. Years ago, before she became a trader, she had taken basic self-defense courses. The instructors had taught her to watch for escape routes and never let an attacker get her into a confined space. Right now, she was in the open corridor with people nearby. If they forced her to her ship, she would be completely at their mercy. "I need to think about this," she said, taking a small step backward. Kane nodded as if this was reasonable. "Of course, but don't take too long. My friends here get impatient easily." Luna moved to cut off Lisa's retreat. The docking bay would be more comfortable for everyone. Lisa realized they were herding her like livestock. Each time she moved, they adjusted their positions to guide her toward her ship. Once she was in the isolated docking bay, no one would see what happened to her. "Please," she said, hating the way her voice shook. "I'm just trying to make a living." "So are we," Kane replied. "Nothing personal, Captain. Just business." That was when Jake Morrison stood up. From his table in the cantina, He had been watching the confrontation through the depot's window, evaluating the situation. 3 pirates, 1 civilian. The woman was clearly outmatched, but she was showing courage by not giving in immediately. He recognized that kind of determination Jake had hoped to avoid getting involved. He was traveling under a false identity, carrying information that could not fall into the wrong hands. Drawing attention to himself was the last thing he wanted to do, but he also remembered Lisa Carter. 2 years ago, during the evacuation of Titan Colony, a cargo pilot had volunteered to make extra runs to get civilians off the planet before the alien bombardment began. She had flown her ship through enemy fire repeatedly, saving hundreds of lives. The pilot's name had been Lisa Carter. Jake made his decision. He walked out of the cantina and down the corridor toward the fuel depot. His movements were casual, unhurried, but his eyes were already calculating distances and angles. 3 targets, civilian in the line of fire, limited cover available. Kane noticed him first. "Excuse me, friend, but this is a private conversation." Jake stopped about 10 feet away, close enough to act, but far enough to avoid immediate attack. "Doesn't look very private to me. Maybe you should find somewhere else to be," Rex growled, turning his cybernetic implants toward Jake. Jake looked at Lisa, who was watching him with desperate hope in her eyes. Then he looked back at Kane. "Actually, I think I'm exactly where I need to be." Kane's expression hardened. "You're making a mistake, stranger. Walk away now, and we'll forget you were here." "I don't think so," Jake said quietly. Luna shifted her grip on her rifle. "Boss, want me to handle this?" Kane studied Jake more carefully. Something about the man's posture, the way he held himself, suggested military training. "Who are you?" Jake smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Just someone who doesn't like bullies." Rex took a threatening step forward. "Big talk for one. Man against 3. 3 against 1 isn't very fair," Jake agreed. "For you?" The corridor went completely silent. Even the background hum of the station's life support system seemed to fade away. Lisa held her breath, knowing that in the next few seconds, everything would change. Kane's hand moved toward his weapon. "Last chance, hero." Jake's stance shifted, almost imperceptibly, weight settling on the balls of his feet. "I was about to say the same thing to you." Kane's hand was halfway to his weapon when Jake moved, the stranger who had seemed so ordinary just moments before exploded into action with the fluid grace of a trained killer. He crossed the 10 feet between them in less than 2 seconds, his body low and balanced like a predator closing in on prey. Rex tried to intercept him, swinging his massive cybernetic arm in a crushing blow that would have shattered a normal person's skull. But Jake wasn't there anymore. He had dropped into a slide that carried him under Rex's swing, and his own fist drove upward into the pirate's solar plexus with mechanical precision. Rex doubled over, gasping for air, and Jake rolled to his feet. Behind him, the big man's cybernetic enhancements made him strong, but they also made him slow. Jake grabbed Rex's natural arm and twisted it behind, his back in a joint lock that sent the pirate crashing to his knees. The entire exchange took less than 5 seconds. Luna had her rifle up and aimed, but Jake was using Rex as a shield. Couldn't get a clean shot without hitting her own teammate. "Get clear," she shouted. Kane finally got his pistol out of its holster, but he was shaking with rage and adrenaline. "Who are you?" he demanded again. Jake looked at him over Rex's shoulder. His voice was calm, almost conversational. "My name is Jake Morrison. I used to work for Earth Defense Command." Kane's eyes widened. Earth Defense Command wasn't just any military unit. They were the elite forces that had fought the first alien invasion wars. The best of the best, trained to fight enemies that could tear apart regular soldiers like paper. "Impossible," Kane said. "EDC doesn't exist anymore." "You're right," Jake replied. "It doesn't. But the training stays with you." Rex tried to break free from the joint lock, using his cybernetic arm to reach back and grab Jake, but Jake twisted the natural arm harder, and Rex screamed in pain. The sound echoed off the metal walls of the corridor. "Let him go," Luna shouted, her rifle still trained on them. Jake looked at Lisa, who was pressed against the wall, watching everything with wide eyes. "Get behind those cargo crates," he told her. "This is about to get messy." Lisa didn't argue. She dove behind a stack of shipping containers just as Luna decided she had a good enough angle to shoot. The energy bolt from her rifle burned the air where Jake had been standing. But he was already moving, dragging Rex with him, toward better cover. Luna's second shot scorched the wall, leaving a black mark on the metal. Kane opened fire with his pistol, the shots wild and angry. The corridor filled with the smell of ozone and burned metal. Station alarms began wailing as the automated systems detected weapons fire. Jake reached the cover of a maintenance alcove and released Rex, who collapsed onto the floor holding his injured arm. The big pirate's cybernetic implants sparked and flickered where Jake had struck nerve clusters that interfaced with the mechanical parts. "Rex," Kane called out. "Rex, get up." But Rex was in no condition to fight. His cybernetic arm was twitching uncontrollably, and his enhanced eye display was showing error messages. Jake had known exactly where to hit him to disrupt the connection between organic and artificial parts. Luna moved to get a better angle, but Jake was already out of the alcove and running toward her. She fired twice more, but he was moving in an unpredictable pattern. Using his knowledge of cover and concealment to stay ahead of her targeting, Kane tried to flank him from the other side. But Jake had anticipated this. He grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and hurled it at Kane with perfect accuracy. The heavy cylinder caught the pirate leader in the chest and sent him sprawling backward. Luna was reloading when Jake reached her. She tried to use the rifle as a club, but Jake caught it with one hand and drove his elbow into her solar plexus with the other. She doubled over, gasping. And he took the weapon away from her with a smooth, disarming technique. The entire fight had lasted less than 30 seconds. Kane was back on his feet, his face bleeding from where he had hit the floor. His pistol was gone, lost somewhere in the confusion. Rex was still down, his cybernetics malfunctioning. Luna was on her hands and knees trying to catch her breath. Jake stood in the center of the corridor, holding Luna's rifle but not pointing it at anyone. He looked completely calm, as if he had just finished a light workout instead of defeating 3 armed pirates. "Here's what's going to happen," he said, his voice carrying clearly over the wailing alarms. "You 3 are going to walk back to your ships and leave this station. You're not going to bother Captain Carter or anyone else here." Kane wiped blood from his mouth. "You think you've won? We have more crew members on our ships. They'll come looking for us." "I'm counting on it," Jake replied. "I sent a message to Colonial Security before I came over here. They should be arriving in about 20 minutes with a full patrol squadron." It was a lie, but Kane didn't know that. The pirate leader's eyes darted toward the station's communication center, calculating whether he had time to verify the claim. Jake continued, "Of course, you could try to fight your way out, but your ship weapons won't do much good against military cruisers. And I'm sure Colonial Security would love to get their hands on the famous Serpent Riders." Luna had recovered enough to speak. "He's bluffing. There's no way he could have called for help." Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. It looked like an ordinary communicator, but Lisa noticed that it had extra antenna, arrays, and military-grade encryption indicators. "Long-range quantum transmitter," Jake explained. "Military issue. I've been in contact with Colonial Security for the past hour, giving them updates on pirate activity in this sector." Kane stared at the device, then at Jake's calm face. The stranger had moved like a professional soldier, fought like someone with years of combat experience, and now he was claiming to have military-grade communications equipment. "Who are you really?" Kane asked. Jake smiled, but there was no friendliness in it. "I already told you. I'm someone who doesn't like bullies." Rex finally managed to get to his feet, his cybernetic arms still sparking. "Boss, we should go." "Guy's not normal." Kane looked around the corridor. Station security would eventually respond to the alarms, even if they were too scared to interfere with pirates normally. And if there really was a Colonial Security patrol coming, the Serpent Riders needed to be long gone before they arrived. "This isn't over," he told Jake. "Yes, it is," Jake replied. "If I see you bothering innocent traders again, I won't be so gentle next time." Kane helped Luna to her feet, while Rex leaned against the wall for support. the three pirates looked like. They had been through a war while Jake didn't even appear to be breathing hard. Lisa watched from behind the cargo crates as the Serpent riders limped away toward their ships. She couldn't believe what she had just witnessed. One man had defeated 3 armed pirates in less than a minute, and he had made it look easy. Jake walked over to her hiding place and offered her his hand. "Are you hurt?" Lisa shook her head as she stood up. "I'm fine. But you... ... How did you do that?" Jake's expression softened slightly. "Training." "That's a training?" "You said you worked for Earth Defense Command. Is that true?" Jake was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "A long time ago. Before they disbanded the unit." Lisa remembered the stories she had heard about EDC soldiers. They had been humanity's first line of defense against alien threats, trained to fight enemies that regular humans couldn't even imagine facing. "Why did you help me?" she asked. Jake looked at her carefully. "I remember you, Titan Colony, 2 years ago. You flew evacuation runs during the bombardment." Lisa's eyes widened. "You were there?" "I was leading the ground defense. Your cargo runs saved a lot of lives that day." The station alarms were still wailing, but they could hear the sound of boots in the corridor. Station security was finally responding now that the shooting had stopped. Jake handed Luna's rifle to Lisa. "You might want to hang on to this. Just in case they decide to come back." "What about you?" Lisa asked. "Where will you go?" Jake was already walking away. "I have a ship to catch." "Take care of yourself, Captain Carter." "Wait," Lisa called after him. "I don't even know how to thank you." Jake paused and looked back at her. "Just keep flying. Galaxy needs people like you." Then he disappeared into the crowd of people who were finally emerging from their hiding places, leaving Lisa standing alone in the corridor with more questions than answers. The Serpent riders limped back to their ships like wounded animals returning to their den. Kane's face was dark with rage and humiliation. In 10 years of piracy, no one had ever made him look so weak. Rex could barely walk straight, his cybernetic systems still sparking and malfunctioning. Luna held her ribs where Jake's elbow had connected, each breath sending sharp pain through her chest. "Boss," Rex said, as they entered the docking bay where their ships waited, "maybe we should just cut our losses and go." Kane spun around and grabbed Rex by his good arm. "Are you insane? That man made us look like children. If word of this gets out, every 2-bit trader in the sector will think they can ignore the Serpent riders." Luna winced as she activated her ship's communication system. "I'm calling the rest of the crew. We have 8 more people spread across our 3 ships. "Good," Kane said. "We're going to finish this properly." Rex's cybernetic eye was still flickering with error messages. "Boss, that guy fought like he wasn't even human. Maybe he was telling the truth about colonial security coming." Kane pulled out his own communicator and checked the emergency channels. Nothing. No colonial security transmissions. No patrol ships in the area. He was bluffing. There's no one coming to help them. On Kane's ship, 4 more pirates were getting ready for combat. They had heard the weapons fire over the comm system and knew something had gone wrong with the simple cargo theft. These weren't the kind of people who backed down from a fight, especially when their reputation was at stake. Luna's ship held 2 more crew members, both experienced fighters who had served in various conflicts before turning to piracy. They were checking their weapons and armor, preparing for whatever Kane had planned. The 3rd ship contained 2 more pirates, including Kane's demolitions expert. If they couldn't take their target alive, they would make sure the station remembered what happened when someone crossed the Serpent riders. Kane gathered his crew in the main docking bay, 11 people in total, all armed and angry. They had enough firepower to level half the station if necessary. "Here's the situation," Kane told them. "Some hero decided to interfere with our business. He embarrassed us in front of witnesses. We can't let that stand." One of the newer crew members raised his hand. "What about station security?" Kane laughed bitterly. "Station security is locked in their office. It won't be a problem." Luna was studying the station schematics on her datapad. "The target is probably back at her ship by now. Base 7, about 200 meters from here." "What about the guy who jumped us?" Rex asked. "We'll deal with him too," Kane said. "Nobody makes the Serpent riders look weak and lives to tell about it." Meanwhile, Jake Morrison was making his way through the station's service corridors. He had memorized the layout during his earlier reconnaissance and knew several routes that avoided the main passages. The station alarms were still sounding, but he could hear boots on metal as security finally started moving. He reached a communication console and quickly accessed the quantum transmitter he had shown Kane earlier. It really was military-grade equipment, though he hadn't used it to contact Colonial Security. Instead, he activated a different channel, one that connected to a network most people didn't know existed. Ghost Protocol 7. "This is Morrison," he said quietly into the transmitter. The response came immediately. "Morrison, we've been trying to reach you for 6 hours. Your mission status was overdue. I ran into complications. Local pirate activity. God. You complete your primary objective?" Jake looked toward the docking bays where he knew the Serpent Riders were regrouping. "Not if I have to deal with 11 armed hostiles. They're not going to give up." "Understood. What do you need?" "Buy me 30 minutes. After that, it won't matter." "Confirmed. Support is en route." Jake shut down the transmitter and continued toward Lisa's ship. He had lied about Colonial Security before, but now help really was coming. The question was whether he could keep everyone alive until it arrived. Lisa was in her ship's cargo bay, checking her equipment. The rifle Jake had given her was more advanced than anything she had ever handled.
Out multiple firing
Modes and enough power to punch through light armor. She hoped she wouldn't need to use it. Her ship's sensors showed movement in the corridors outside. Too many people moving with too much purpose. Pirates weren't giving up. She activated her ship's external cameras and watched as armed figures moved through the docking bay. They were spreading out, surrounding her ship. Even if her engines were ready for immediate departure, she would never make it to open space. A voice called out from the docking bay. "Captain Carter, this is Victor Kane. I think we need to finish our conversation." Lisa stayed quiet, hoping they would think she had already left the ship. "I know you're in there," Kane continued. "Your ship's life support is running, and the heat signature shows at least one person aboard.
Ow!
Come out now, and we can settle this peacefully." Lisa checked her weapon again. The safety was off, and she had a full power cell. She wasn't going down without a fight. "You have 10 seconds, Kane called out. "Then we start cutting through your hull." That was when Jake Morrison appeared in the docking bay doorway. He moved like a shadow, slipping between stacked cargo containers with the silence of a trained infiltrator. The pirates had positioned themselves to watch Lisa's ship, but they weren't watching their own backs. Jake reached the first sentry without being detected. The man went down silently, unconscious before he hit the ground. Jake took his weapon and moved to the next position. The second pirate noticed something was wrong when his partner didn't respond to a cum check. He turned to look and found Jake standing behind him with a stun weapon. "Going somewhere?" Jake asked quietly. The pirate tried to raise his rifle, but Jake was faster. The stun blast dropped him instantly. Kane was getting impatient. "Time's up." "Captain Carter," he signaled to his demolitions expert, who began setting charges on Lisa's cargo bay door. The explosive would breach the hull without destroying the valuable cargo inside. That was when Luna spotted Jake moving between the containers. "Boss, the interference is back." Kane spun around and saw 2 of his crew members unconscious on the ground. Jake Morrison stood in the shadows 30 meters away, holding weapons he had taken from the fallen pirates. "You just don't know when to quit, do you?" Kane shouted. Jake stepped into the light. "I could say the same about you." Rex raised his working arm, the one that wasn't cybernetic, and fired a blast that scorched the air near Jake's head. But Jake was already moving, using the cargo containers as cover. The docking bay erupted into chaos as both sides opened fire. Energy bolts lit up the darkness, leaving glowing traces in the recycled air. Jake moved like a ghost between the containers, picking off Kane's crew one by one, but there were too many of them, and they had better positions. Jake found himself pinned down behind a damaged shipping crate as energy bolts chewed chunks out of his cover. Lisa watched from her ship as the battle raged outside. Jake had come back to help her, even though he could have escaped safely. She couldn't just hide while he fought for his life. She opened her ship's cargo bay and took aim with the rifle he had given her. The first shot took down a pirate who was trying to flank Jake's position. The second shot forced Kane himself to dive for cover. Two can play this game, she said to herself, and kept firing. The battle in the docking bay had been raging for 10 minutes. When the station's external sensors detected something approaching fast from deep space, 3 sleek warships dropped out of hyperspace and moved toward Kepler Station with military precision. Kane noticed them first on his portable scanner. What the hell are those? Luna squinted at the display. No identification signals. They're running dark. The ships were black as space itself, with no markings or symbols to identify their origin. They moved with the kind of coordination that only came from years of training and combat experience. Jake saw the ships too, and smiled grimly. His 30 minutes were almost up. One of Kane's crew members called out from behind a cargo container. "Boss, we've got problems. Those ships are launching boarding pods." Kane's blood ran cold. Military boarding pods meant military soldiers. And military soldiers meant the kind of trouble that the Serpent Riders couldn't shoot their way out of. "We need to go," he told his crew. "Back to the ships now." But Jake wasn't going to let them escape that easily. He popped up from behind his cover and fired 3 quick shots, dropping the pirates who were closest to the exit. The others found themselves trapped between Jake's position and Lisa's ship. Rex tried to use his bulk to force a path through, but his cybernetic systems were still malfunctioning. He stumbled and fell, creating more confusion among the remaining pirates. The boarding pods hit the station with metallic thuds that echoed through the corridors. Within seconds, armed figures in black combat armor were moving through the passages. With the fluid efficiency of an elite military unit, Kane realized they were surrounded. Station security was too scared to interfere, but these new arrivals clearly weren't afraid of a fight. "Who are they?" he demanded. Jake stood up from his cover, no longer worried about being shot. "Friends of mine." The first soldiers reached the docking bay and took positions around the entrances. They moved without words, communicating through hand signals and helmet displays. Their weapons were military grade, far superior to anything the pirates carried. One of the soldiers approached Jake. Unlike the others, this one had officer markings on his armor. He removed his helmet, revealing a weathered face with intelligent eyes. "Morrison," the officer said. "You're late for your appointment." Jake nodded. "Sorry, Commander Hayes. I got distracted." Commander Hayes looked around the docking bay, taking in the unconscious pirates and the scorch marks from the firefight. "I can see that." "Are these the locals who were giving you trouble?" "Some of them. The rest are probably trying to reach their ships." Hayes spoke into his comm unit. "Bravo team, secure the pirate vessels. No one leaves this station." Kane listened to this exchange with growing horror. These weren't just any soldiers. They were some kind of special operations unit, and they knew Jake Morrison personally.
"Hey, what do you want?"
Kane called out from his hiding place. Commander Hayes looked in his direction. "Victor Kane, former Colonial Marine, dishonorably discharged for theft and assault. Currently wanted on 14 worlds for piracy, murder, and terrorism." Kane's mouth went dry. How did they know so much about him? Hayes continued. "You and your crew are under arrest by authority of the Terran Defense Coalition. Drop your weapons and surrender peacefully." One of Kane's remaining crew members panicked and tried to run for the exit. A soldier stunned him with a precise shot that dropped him unconscious without causing permanent harm. Rex finally managed to get his cybernetic arm working again and raised it threateningly. "I'm not going to prison." Rex stepped forward. "Rex, look around. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and trapped. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Rex looked at the soldiers surrounding them, then at Jake. "You set us up." "No," Jake replied. "You set yourselves up the moment you decided to. Threaten innocent people." Luna was the first to drop her weapon. She was smart enough to recognize when a battle was lost. "I surrender." One by one, the remaining pirates followed her example. Even Rex finally powered down his cybernetic arm and raised his hands. Only Kane continued to hold his weapon.
Albus.
Isn't over? Kane snarled at Jake. Commander Hayes walked over to Kane with his rifle ready. Actually, it is. Our operation is finished, Kane. We've been tracking the Serpent Riders for months. Kane stared at him in disbelief. Months? Did you really think you could attack shipping lanes without consequences? The Terran Defense Coalition protects human commerce throughout the galaxy. When pirates start hurting trade, we take notice. Holstered his weapon and walked over to Lisa's ship. She emerged from the cargo bay, still holding the rifle he had given her. Are you all right? He asked. Lisa nodded, though she was still shaking from the adrenaline. I'm fine. I don't understand what's happening. Who are these people? Jake looked back at Commander Hayes, who was overseeing the arrest of the pirates. People who make sure that humans can travel safely between the stars. And you work for them? Now, I do special assignments when they need someone who can blend in with civilian populations. Lisa realized what that meant. You're a spy, among other things. Information I'm carrying is about alien movement in the outer sectors. Pirates like Kane weren't my primary mission, but they were interfering with it. Commander Hayes approached. His helmet tucked under his arm. Captain Carter, I presume. Lisa nodded nervously. Yes, sir. I understand you assisted Agent Morrison in subduing these criminals. The Coalition appreciates your courage. I was just trying to protect my cargo, Lisa said. Hayes smiled. That's exactly the kind of spirit that makes human civilization worth protecting. Independent traders like you are the backbone of our expansion into space. One of the soldiers reported that all the pirate ships had been secured. The Serpent Riders' crew had surrendered without further resistance once they realized they were facing professional military forces. Jake walked with Lisa back toward her ship. You should be safe to continue your journey now. The Coalition will make sure word gets out that this shipping lane is under protection. Lisa stopped walking. What about you? Where will you go? Jake looked toward the sleek warships visible through the docking bay windows. Back to work. There are other threats. Out there, other people who need protection? Will I see you again? Jake smiled. The galaxy is smaller than you think. And people like us have a way of crossing paths when it matters. Commander Hayes called out to Jake. Morrison, we need to depart. The intel you're carrying is time-sensitive. Nodded to the commander, then turned back to Lisa. Take care of yourself, Captain Carter. And remember, there are more good people in the galaxy than bad ones. Sometimes they just need a reminder of what they're fighting for. Lisa watched as Jake joined the soldiers and walked toward their boarding pod before he disappeared through the airlock. He turned and gave her a small salute. Within an hour, the Coalition ships had departed with their prisoners. The Serpent Riders were gone, their reign of terror ended by the combined efforts of one brave woman and one man who remembered what it meant to protect others. Lisa completed her refueling and prepared to depart Kepler Station. As her ship pulled away from the docking clamps, she looked back at the station where her life had almost ended. Instead, she had discovered that humanity had guardians watching over them. People willing to risk everything to keep others safe. The cargo in her hold would reach its destination, and she would make her profit. But more importantly, she would continue flying the shipping lanes, knowing that somewhere out there, Jake Morrison and others like him were making sure that courage and decency still mattered in the vast darkness of space. Her comm system chimed. With an incoming message, it was from an encrypted sender, but the text was simple. Safe travels, Captain. Stars are watching. Lisa smiled and set course for her next destination, carrying with her the knowledge that in a galaxy full of dangers, humanity's greatest strength was still the willingness of ordinary people to do extraordinary things when others needed help.